What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, we're bringing you one-step equations with a focus on multiplying and dividing this time. And so if you missed my previous video on adding and subtracting, please go back to my channel, Math Superstars, and check that out. But this one is just for multiplying and dividing. So you might have seen this way back in the day where you had to figure out what the star equaled as a number. So you have the symbol here. And this symbol represents a number. And so we say, like, what number times 3 gives you 12? And so way back in the day, your third grade or fourth grade mind, you said, you know, I know this. This is 4 times 3 equals 12. And what you did is you replaced the star with the number 4. Or you might have seen something like this. We had a smiley face divided by 3 equals 9. And you had to figure out what the smiley face equaled, and so you replace a number for that, and you're like, you know, I know that 27 when I divide it by 3 is going to give me 9. And so what you're doing is we're taking a symbol and you're figuring out what the numerical value is. And so for this lesson, we're going to talk about how to do the steps using algebra to figure out this time what the variable equals, or what the letter in the equation equals. So we have some steps. The first one is we need to identify the variable. So we need to point it out, pretty much. Second one is we need to do inverse operations. And so in this case, that if you are multiplying, the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So we're just talking about the opposite operation. And so if you have division going on, so if you're dividing, you know that you should be multiplying. And so what we do is we do inverse operations to get that variable by itself. And so, because whatever we do to the one side, you have to do to the other side. And so I want you to put a little star next to this, saying this is the step that you have to show. And so over the following couple examples, you'll get a feel for how you should be showing your work. So here we have an example of multiplication. You might say, well, that's just 3 times. It looks like a multiplication sign. So in algebra, they actually don't write the times symbol that's right in between. And so there's no times symbol between the coefficient 3 and the variable x. We know that it is multiplication. And so we can ask ourselves, what is happening to x? So I can say that we are multiplying x, so here's my variable, by 3. And how do I get x by itself? We're going to divide both sides by 3. Here's the way that this looks. And so in algebra, instead of the division sign, they actually use a fraction bar. This fraction bar tells me to do the same operation, which is division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So there's our step. So we showed that we are dividing both sides by 3. Here's what this is going to do. The 3's are going to cancel out. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I don't have to write that anywhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my variable, which is x. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. And then I'm going to do 18 divided by, it's the fraction bar, remember it means it's division, 18 divided by 3, which gives me 6. So I can write this as x equals 6. The way I can test this out is that if I put in 6 for x, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 times 6, which is equal to 18. So we know we did that one step properly. Let's take a look at this example. So you have 42 equals 8c. So remember, if I see the coefficient and the variable next to each other, that operation means that I'm multiplying. And so what is happening to c is that I'm multiplying c by 8. And how do I get c all by itself? Is I'm going to divide. So because the opposite of multiplying by 8 is dividing by 8. And so here's the way that this looks. So remember, we're going to use our fraction bar to show division. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 8. And you're showing your steps properly. So after this, we know that the 8's cancel each other out in this case. So I bring down my variable, which is c. I bring down my equal sign, and I'm going to do 42 divided by 8. And you might go, that doesn't give me a whole number, but it is okay. In my trusty calculator, 42 divided by 8 gives me a decimal of 5 and 25 hundredths. You might go, I can't do that in my head. It's okay. Get out your calculator. So we say that C equals 5 and 25 hundredths. Let's go ahead and test it. So the way I test this one is I'll do 8 times 5.25 multiplied by 8. And if it gives you 42, you did the step correctly. So let's talk about this example here. So I have x in the fraction bar means divide. So I have x divided by 3 equals 10. So we say what's happening to x. We know that we're dividing by 3. So how can I get x all by itself? You guessed it. The opposite of dividing by 3 is that I'm multiplying by 3 on both sides. And here's the way this looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here. I'm going to put a multiplication sign. And then I'm going to put 3 right near the x. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. So 10 times 3. So once you get that set up, what happens is the 3's cross out. So when you multiply by 3, it should create a little diagonal line there. Let's bring our variable down. So I have x being equal to, and then 10 times 3 gives me 30. So I can say that x equals 30. The way I can test this, if I did 30 divided by 3, my calculator equals 10. And so I know that I did my step correctly because I checked my work. Let's take a look at this example. So I have 2 equals k divided by, remember the fraction bar means division, so I'm dividing by 4. So what's happening to k is that I'm dividing by 4. How can I get k by itself? You guessed it, the opposite of dividing by 4 is that I'm multiplying by 4 on both sides. So let's go ahead and show that. So I'm going to multiply by 4 on both sides of my equation. So now I got the step down. The 4's cross out. Remember, I'm making that diagonal. The 4's cancel out, so I'm left with my variables k. I have an equal sign, and then 4 times 2 gives me 8. The way I could check this is if I did 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. So I know that my answer checked out and it's all good. And so if you're stuck, lost, or confused, go back to the steps in this video. It'll help you out.